With Alan Wake 2 just days away, we figured now is a perfect time to talk about the main motivator behind the events of the first game, and now Alan Wake 2. The thing that literally makes his world go around and around, the manuscript. Hey everyone, welcome to Darkling Alley. J and Tempest here, and today we're going to focus on some important details to consider as we prepare to return to the Dark Place. With that said, this may be our last video leading up to the release of Alan Wake 2. We have some really great projects that we've been working on. However, between prior obligations, a full-time job, and Tempest fighting a nasty cold for 2 weeks, we had to put a lot on hold. But we did want to create a little something special. Not only to cheer on the long-awaited sequel, but to show our appreciation to everyone who's been watching our videos and providing some wonderful feedback. It means so much to us, and we greatly appreciate the support. So let's go ahead and dive into this video. In the first game, which I suppose we can now call Alan Wake 1, Alan is trying to navigate a horror story of his own creation, over and over. Writer and creative director Sam Lake has verified the time loop theory. Alan must write a manuscript that will not only result in his wife being released from the evil clutches of a dark presence, but also allow for his own escape. Anyone who has played Alan Wake knows that he does manage to save his wife Alice, but at the expense of his own freedom, something that he's been trying to write his way out of for the past 13 years.
If you've been watching the previews and following Remedy on social media, it's pretty clear that we have a lot to look forward to in the sequel. On top of getting caught up with what Alan has been up to for the past 13 years, we'll also be introduced to a second playable protagonist, as well as a few new characters. It's also been revealed that we'll be reintroduced to some of the original characters. It's pretty likely that many fans are already starting to experience that kid in a candy store feeling right about now. From what we've gathered in the previews, Alan is still stuck in the Dark Place, but we're not sure if he's gotten any closer to an escape. His interview with Mr. Door, however, could be seen as an indicator that he has made some sort of progress, though he is a repeat guest, possibly indicating the continuation of time loops. In this interview, Alan's story Departure is presented as a completed and published novel, even sporting some fresh cover art. What we don't know yet is what version of Departure it is. When I say version, I'm talking about anything that deviates from what we witnessed or experienced in the first game. Several drafts were written throughout the time loop, and Alan is still writing at the end of the game. I had assumed that Departure wasn't going to be a major factor in the sequel. It seemed like it was a done deal, ending with those famous last words.
It's not a lake. It's an ocean.
However, there could be an interesting twist.
Damn it.
Let's hop over to Control for a minute and look at a possible clue.
Just to mix things up a little, we're going to let Langston explain how Departure was experienced outside of the Dark Place.
Apparently, there were chapters of an unfinished manuscript floating around after Wake disappeared. People say they're cursed, which is a very discriminatory term against altered materials, by the way. The forums all call the unfinished book Departure because Wake kept saying it would be a departure from his previous work. I found some pages that are supposedly the real deal on the internet. It's pretty dark stuff. He was going full horror, which makes sense since he used to write for Night Springs.
And to make things even more confusing, we were also given similar information in the first game.
Barry took another sip of the heavenly coffee. He grinned at Rose. Surely this was love. Rose gushed on breathlessly. The new one will be a masterpiece, I know it. You must tell him not to listen to the trolls in the forums saying Departure will never get finished. He should take his time and make it perfect. I can wait.
There are two things that stand out in this manuscript page. One, it is written by an omniscient or all-knowing author, and two, it's made to sound as though it's public knowledge that Departure was already in the works, which when you think about what he says in his nightmare, it somewhat reinforces this idea.
I realized that the hitchhiker was a character from the story I'd been working on.
What Langston seems to be implying is that it wasn't known that Alan was working on a new book until chapters of the untitled manuscript were found and posted on forums after the AWE, and that it was the people on the forums that called it Departure.
So there apparently exists a completed manuscript for Departure in Alan's Dark Place, and a partial manuscript for another version of Departure existing in reality, or the real world. So which is the dominant of the two? Which holds the most power? His Dark Place version, or the version that exists in reality? You can also frame this question in another way, depending on how you interpret what Alan's Dark Place is. What is true and what is imagined?
Little by little, without realizing it, I'd come to believe that the story in the manuscript was coming true. The current of its narrative had taken me deeper and deeper into dark waters. Alice had been taken from me. Barry was probably in jail. I was a fugitive from the FBI. The whole world taken over by the dark presence was trying to destroy me. It all felt real, but it matched a textbook case of insanity.
Departure is, after all, about Alan. It is important to note that this version of Alan's story includes the addition of control, but if you take that away, there is still public knowledge of Departure, so not a whole lot has changed in that regard. Control gives Alan Wake new avenues and more possibilities, and allows for some of the psychological thriller aspect to dissolve but not disappear. We can have a psychological horror story, which sounds like what we are going to get with Alan Wake 2, but with the inclusion of the survival aspect. And with that said, our guess is that there could very well be a possibility that previous drafts of Departure found around Bright Falls weren't exactly put to rest.
I still have some pages of your manuscript left.
And could cause some form of resistance, or at the very least some form of interference, in Alan's effort to escape or how he experiences the dark place.
Let us know what you think down in the comments. Could these alternate versions of Departure that were so carelessly left around Bright Falls be a problem? Or could they be considered inert upon completion of a final draft? Anyway, we hope you enjoyed the video. We're super stoked for the release of Alan Wake 2 and can't wait to play it. Thanks for watching. Darkling Alley, out.